Bring my
Okay.
lighting kit.
I will go. Everybody take a minute. So thank you all for coming to this. Jerome and I had a chance to go to Joe's UX Writers Conference. Keith, you were there as well, and Edie, you were there too, weren't you? Yeah, and we put together one of those ad hoc sessions to ask for advice, and a bunch of people joined, and it was really cool. And Jerome and I got to talking, and we thought, wow, I wonder if we could kind of do another one of those. And so we looked around, through our contacts, and Michelle and I worked together for 2 years on the elementary school auction, and had a lot of fun, right? Yeah.
Jeremiah was in charge, and he did a very good job.
Not have fun, yeah. And but it was a lot of fun to work with her, and I've stayed connected with her over the years. And she now has a job in UX at Amazon, and so she was kind enough to say yes to this trial run. So Michelle, this is Keith, Doug, Edie, and Jerome, and we were all in class together, and they're all really awesome. And
sure.
I'll turn it over to you, and you can introduce yourself, and then I think we'll do a little bit of questions, and then we'll just do a Q&A and see where it goes.
Awesome, cool. So it's so nice to meet you, and thanks for having me. I put together just a little. I figured you get tired of talking or hearing me talk, so I've got a couple slides, and they're real interesting. Oh, you might. Hey, Jeremiah, can you enable that I share my screen?
You do that.
Cool. So I am on the DDG team, which is the Devices and Services Design team at Amazon. So we're the team that oversees Echo, Fire TV, tablet, and I think that's it. We don't have the e-reader. So the e-reader was the first device that came up in kind of the device world, and so it's in its own. So Kindle's its own org, and then kind of the rest of us have grown up. But I'm gonna take you through my background, and you can see it's a long and winding road. And I started out as a writer producer, and then I've kind of taken some twists and turns. So
I think I found the setting that allows you to share.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yes. Okay. So can you guys see the hello?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Hello. So a little history. I am a Jayhawk from the Midwest. I went to journalism school, and I got a degree in a BS in science in journalism. And I was focused on promotion and sales, and I'm not a salesperson. I always knew I'd want to be a promotion person. So what that meant was I worked in television. So 6 cities in 6 years, which is what you do when you work in television. And I was a writer producer in the advertising team, marketing team. So I was in Louisville, I was in Cincinnati, I was in Charlotte, and then I came to Seattle, which I liked very much, but didn't really love my boss, nor did he love me. So then I ended up getting fired. And then I ended up landing a contract job at the Oprah Winfrey Show, doing the same thing, writing and producing. We would do the ads for the show, next Oprah, Tom Cruise kind of thing. And then the show opens. So I did that for 6 years. And actually, no, I didn't do that for 6 years. I did that for 4 years. And I really enjoyed that job, but I also wanted to have kids, and I had no idea how to do both. And that turned out to be a good decision because I had twins. So came back to Seattle to stay because I love it here. Worked at a really small agency. Really kind of the internet happened when I went to Chicago. So by the time I came back, you could live anywhere and write and produce for cable networks and edit here and then just post a spot and somebody'd pull it down and put it on air. So at Birdhouse, we did a lot of overflow marketing for Travel Channel, National Geographic. We launched NGC and Espanol. So it was a continuation of the work I had been doing. Then I moved, and this is going to play in a second, but then I moved over to a motion graphics company called Superfad, and they did a lot of really high-end work. And at that point, I was very randomly recruited to go to Xbox. And so this is just a little reel. You'll see how old it is. It's old. I've been doing stuff for a while. But at Xbox, I was brought in to work with motion design. So the motion designers are part of the studio. I also then worked on our phone, Windows Phone, which was a great product that didn't work so well. I mean, it's too late. The market was saturated. I got to work on some hardware. I got to actually produce that Star Wars Connect hardware, which was super cool. I loved that. And then, after about 5 or 6 years at Microsoft, I ended up moving over to Amazon. So when I joined Amazon, I was on a team that it's our cross-channel marketing team. So half of the team does our above the line ads, the Super Bowl commercials, things like that, like just true agency creatives. And then I oversaw a team of project managers that did a lot of our on-site and external work. So we did a toy catalog when Toys R Us went out of business. Prime then became part of our organization. So then all of a sudden, Prime Day is your project, which is interesting because then all of a sudden your team is in charge of a Taylor Swift concert and you don't even know how that happened. And you really don't know why your project manager is worried about event security because that seems really out of scope, but that's very Amazon. And then we also did some devices work. So I spent about two years on this team, the cross-channel marketing team, and then I moved over to devices. So as I mentioned, the team that I work on oversees Fire TV, all the Echo products, and tablet. And so then there's different, and then it kind of branches into the mobile app and smart home and a bunch of different, it's got tentacles and it's Amazon, so it's always growing. So there's a great website that if you guys have time, you should check out. It's amazon.design.com. I can walk you through it a little bit, but it'll give you, it's got some really nice profiles on some of my colleagues. And it talks about just kind of the environment and what inspires people and what their background is and why they do what they do. And so that's kind of an interesting way to start learning about different roles within a studio like DDG. So I can show you just a little, well, I'll stop sharing. But so that's a little bit about kind of about where I've been. So definitely started, I was always 50-50, like I would write a script and then I would go into an edit suite and sit down with an editor and put something together. And when I went over to Xbox, it really was focused on the motion design. And that's the first time I'd ever been in a product design team. So there's similarities. I like the pace. I like the people. I like the creativity. And I found that those are like the things in my career that I need. That's what energizes me. But when I kind of moved away from just being a hardcore writer and more into kind of my project management skills, that's where I've been kind of meandering for the past, I don't know, 10 years maybe. When I moved over to DDG, I very intentionally wanted to get back into UX project managing. So when I was at Xbox, I was a contractor. I couldn't get hired full time. My contract ended. They kind of systematically stopped hiring UX PMs, but luckily the person that had hired me for the contract went over to Windows Phone and she hired me full time. So that was super helpful. And the main reason why I wanted to go over to DDG at Amazon was that a lot of people I knew from Xbox, a lot of people I knew from Windows Phone had migrated. So Seattle's a small town. People like to, A, stay here for the most part, and B, work with the people they know. So there tends to be like groups that migrate back and forth. So when I moved over to DDG, I probably had worked with at least a third of the studio, and we're 170 people. So there were a lot of people, like when people said, "Hey, Michelle's here," everyone's like, "Oh, out of the woodwork." So, and that was very intentional. I wanted, jumping over to Amazon was a leap of faith, and I was super happy, and I worked with great people. But moving internally, I wanted to go someplace where I knew everyone. So when I first moved over, to DDG, which was a year ago in July, I worked on our mobile app team. And so with the mobile app, it's the Alexa app. And Amazon's very funny. I mean, we just build stuff and there's not always a plan. And the mobile app is a great example of that. It was initially just built for devs to test Alexa utterances, and they would log bugs on this app. It's now evolved into a smart home hub. Like I can go to my app and turn off my alarms and turn on my lights. I can. It's also how we onboard all of our headless products. So a headless product is like a dot. Anything that doesn't have a screen goes through that mobile app. So Echo Buds, Echo Auto, there's glasses, like, you know, you name it. We're trying to put Alexa in everything. So it has to go through this app. So it's from a UX standpoint, it's a really heavy lift. And from an organizational standpoint, you've got tentacles into a whole bunch of different orgs trying to get everybody in line and make sure that from a user perspective, we're always understanding what's the most important part and how do we not overwhelm people. So I spent about 6 months on that team, digging in, and I was mainly focused on our out-of-box experience. So when you plug in a device, how do you get it up and running as seamlessly as possible so we can monopolize on that excitement? You know, you unbox something and you're excited, you want to get it ready to go. And if you have trouble, you start to lose faith and you start to lose confidence and you question yourself. And so our whole job was to make it as easy and seamless as possible. And whatever we could do on the back end, great. But from a writing perspective, from a design perspective, the least amount of steps, the least amount of copy, and make it feel friendly and easy. So that was our goal. And that was for a range of products. It gets a little funny when all of a sudden you're onboarding a product that's in a car. I don't know, are you gonna have connectivity? Are you gonna be in the garage? Are you in the basement of your high rise? We don't know. So the edge cases get pretty complex on some of these products. But so we had someone on the team leave from the Fire TV side, so they asked me to move over to Fire TV, which I was excited about. I mean, Fire TV felt very much like Xbox from a UI standpoint. Definitely get the TV background just from a content perspective. And so I've been working for the past 6 months on something that's been announced, so I can talk about it, but it is a rear seat entertainment system that Fiat Chrysler and BMW are both doing. So essentially, and it's on auto timelines, so their timelines are a lot longer than ours are. We usually ship once a year, ideally, if not more. But essentially, so we're working on what is that rear seat entertainment experience for Fire TV. So that's also got a lot of edge cases, and you know, what happens when you don't have connectivity? How much can you actually download? Some things are touch enabled, and we haven't done touch enabled work before because you don't walk up to your TV and touch it, you use your remote. And so from an interaction design perspective, it's super complex. And plus you have voice on top of that. So then you've got, if you say, hey, Alexa, turn on this, is Alexa in the front seat going to understand you? So, and do you not, are those two systems not even talking to each other? Because again, everything is like building so quickly that it's not built necessarily correctly, and it's not necessarily built so they'll interact together. So a lot of what we do as a team is figure out how to get it to work and cross our fingers, and you know, for the most part it does. And so recently, like within the past month, I've taken on a new role in the studio. So I am now our operations manager. So that means I support our VP and his leads. I make sure that we do kind of the right cadence, whether it's like quarterly reports or at Amazon, we have something called OP1, which is our operational plan. Every team at Amazon writes an operational plan. That's how we get our headcount funded. So I'm kind of shifting into a role that I'm not necessarily on a product, shipping a product, but I'm making sure that the studio is equipped and we have the right people, the right training, things like that. So that's a very long-winded way of saying what I do. for UX writing in particular, I was telling Jeremiah that our team, so there's lots of different design teams at Amazon. Ours is one of the bigger ones, but there are pockets everywhere. Photos has one, shopping has one, smart home has a bunch. And so with that, you know, the work that we're responsible for, we have one UX writer who's been there 9 years, and I think she's done probably 80 or 90% of the strings for our devices. She's a very busy lady. She had someone that was helping her. This gentleman was specifically on mobile app, and he left for a while, so they just hired someone new. One thing that's interesting about where she's pulling people in, a lot of times it's agencies. So if your end goal is to be at a corporation, that's cool, but don't overlook some of these small agencies that might need freelancers. Contracting is a really great way. Like I mentioned, I started at Microsoft as a contractor, and that was really good for me. I was coming from a true kind of agency. Everyone thought I was crazy, that I was going across the bridge, leaving Capitol Hill and going across the bridge and selling my soul. And you know, there's just different avenues. So what I would say, the nice thing about contracting is you get to check a place out and see if it feels right. And fit is huge. Like, it needs fit for you, and you need a fit for them. So contracting is a great way. And small agencies that are working on, everybody needs an app now, right? Like, everyone, you can't really launch a product without having something on your phone that people can then just download and go. Yeah. So there's high demand. There's high demand. So within the studio, I'll just kind of talk about how we're split up and what we focus on, because it might give you an idea of what a larger team like this is like. So we have one side of the house, if you will, focuses on the Fire operating system, so Fire OS. And so that would be Fire tablet or Fire TV. So we have one creative director. We have different design managers, which are really a UX PM's right-hand person. So together we manage the team. They're working more on the technical side of things, and what is that interaction design? What is that visual design? Like, how does this product work? And the UX PM is working on, okay, what's the schedule? When do engineering need it? Have I gotten our copywriter in? Has legal approved what the copywriter has written? So I'm coordinating, you know, some of the details, like long-term details, and then very detailed details. And that person's more on the visual and interaction design. So that's Fire TV. Within Alexa, we have two focuses. We have two leads. So one of them is the Alexa core customer experience. So that is a lot of it is multimodal, what we call multimodal. So anything with a screen, an Echo Show, something, you know, that sit in your kitchen. Well, mine sits in my kitchen. They can sit anywhere, actually. And then we also have the mobile app, smart home, and then comms. So most of our teams are horizontals. So like Fire TV only works on Fire TV. The core app only works on core app, but the comms team is a vertical. So the comms team is a team that builds out the tools that allows me to get onto my app and call home, or to make a video call from here to my parents. And so it's a communications tool platform that they embed in the products across the board, which ultimately will be really great and very marketable. Like, if I can be sitting in my living room and say, hey Alexa, to my Fire TV, call mom, and then all of a sudden I'm in a video call with my mom. So their tools are crucial, and they kind of are the underpinning for comms. And frankly, I didn't understand kind of the power of that and the ability to make that work until I moved over to DDG. And my team had done a ton of commercials about you see grandma and you know, like all of that. But last summer, I have twins that are 15 now, but you know, they don't answer their phones. See, like, they have the phone, they don't answer the phone, right? But I could get on my cell phone and drop in and literally all of a sudden be talking in the kitchen, like, hello, somebody needs, somebody needs to answer the phone. And that's when, as a customer, because I'm a customer too, everyone at Amazon is a customer. That's when you realize the value of, oh wow, like this can really make my life better. Like I can get in the car and hit a button and say, you know, I'm stopping by the grocery store. If you guys need anything, let me know. And it's announced through the house. So some of this stuff you know about, but you don't even really realize the impact until it makes your life easier, which is the whole point, right? Like that's what we do. Okay, so we've got Fire OS, we've got the Alexis team, and then we have a research team that has embedded people on each of those teams. So we do user research within the team. We have a design technologist. So what happens, kind of the start to finish, and you guys probably heard this, but a product manager would come to the team and say, we're going to build X, and these are the specifications. Our team would then take that and digest it and figure out, okay, well, what does that mean? And how do we think what would that interaction be? And we would kind of map that out. We would do an interaction design spec. We would then give that to engineering, and engineering would look at it and go, oh, well, this part we already have built, and this part's going to take 10 sprints. And so then we start realizing, okay, this is the scope of what it's going to take. And then my job is to say, okay, well, if this one's going to take 10 sprints, we're going to do that first because it's going to be the hardest, and then we'll piece in the other parts. And at that point, we really, I think of us as a three-legged stool, because there's product. They're the ones that have the vision and that they know how this thing is going to go to market, and they start from inception to getting it on the shelf. So they have the whole life cycle of that product. We're brought in to figure out, how does it work? How does it interact? What does it look like? And our research team helps us figure out, hey, is this design going to work, or is this design going to work? Like, that's key. We might have assumptions that are incorrect. We might build things that don't even make sense, that people don't even like. And so if you don't go through user research, you miss that opportunity to make improvements. But that three-legged stool is product, design, and engineering. And clearly we can't do anything without our engineering team, because they're the ones that build it. So our mantra really within my team is, you never block engineering. So I'm always trying to figure out, when are they gonna start working on things, and what do we need to do to get that ready? So what else is in the team? We also have a kind of an envisioning team. So they're the team that's like, we are heads down what's releasing in the next 3 months. And they're like, okay, what is this thing going to be in 2 years, 3 years? And so they have more of a longer term vision. And then they kind of come back with us, and then we get them in the right conversations to make sure that our business partners understand, hey, from a design perspective, this is what we think the opportunity is, and this is how we would drive this product forward. So so the studio is pretty self-sufficient. We also have what we would call a bridge team, which is our production team. They make sure that they take those files and get them prepped and ready, so engineering can then build what they need to build. So we have about 170 people on the team, and we launch a lot of stuff. So that's a lot of information. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
That's helpful.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, I jotted down a few questions. You know, I think, and when we were talking a little bit before we got started, I had mentioned that, and I talked about it at the beginning, about this session that Jerome and I did, and some of the things that, some of the questions that people had, and some of the points that people brought up. And I'm really curious, you know, as somebody who's working as a manager in this capacity, and in a team that's working on UX and stuff like that, when you guys look for someone to come in and do that kind of work, what you're looking for, and what kind of things what kind of experience you would like to see, what kind of portfolio items you like to see, if any. I mean, I don't even know if you guys even want to see that stuff. It's more like, well, what have you done professionally? It'd be really interesting to hear a little bit about that, especially because all of us are on the outside looking in.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So portfolio reviews are a part of our interview process for designers, and for writers. They would have you do samples, and then they usually, I'm saying this and I'm not 100% sure, but I think that they have a portfolio review for writers too. And we've just started doing it for UX PMs, which is very interesting because really what we're looking for is not, I mean, as a UX PM, I'm not responsible for the design, but I am responsible for the systematic thinking that goes into making sure it's a smoothly run project. So anytime you can get anything that you can show, hang on to it. I think that that's important.
And it
And a
sounds
lot
like
of,
you like to people to be able to speak to kind of like, well, here's this thing that I did, and here's how I did it, and here's why I did it.
yes,
That those are some.
Amazon is, I mean, and Amazon is very consistent in two things, and it's inconsistent pretty much in everything else. One of them is leadership principles. We have leadership principles that, frankly, when I was like, oh, it sounds like a bunch of hooey. And then I looked at them before I interviewed, clearly, and I was like, oh, okay, I can get behind this. And really, what it is it's common language, and it's the way we communicate with each other. One of them is disagree and commit, right? Like, okay, I don't agree with you, but I'm moving forward, and we're not going to revisit this conversation. One of them is learn and be curious. It's very, very Amazonian to be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm going to go figure it out. And I've heard managers say that they expect you to know 50% of your job, and the other 50% they expect you to figure out, which can be stressful, but you learn. So the leadership principles are one thing that it has in common. The other thing that it has in common is its interview process, which to me is fascinating, because the way they interview for a marketer or an SDE or a UX writer is exactly the same. And what they're looking for is stories of impact. And so the way I tell people to get prepared for an Amazon interview is come up with 5 different examples and talk about, what was the task? What was I asked to do? What did I do? And what were the results? And they're very, very, like, they will stop you and say, don't say we. Like, if it's a team, like what people like us do, we don't do it alone, but they really want to know individual impact. And so so that's kind of the framework. Like, it's situation, task, action, results. And if you kind of go in with that and have a fair amount of things to kind of touch on, and it doesn't have to be I was a UX writer, it could be I did this in my career and this was the decision I made. Amazon is very much like, they don't put people in a box and expect them to stay there. So kind of advice on like that is it doesn't really matter what you did, what your experience was. It's relevant if you were able to address something, drive something forward, and create results and be strategic in what you do.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the way they look for people. I think you had asked me about a no hire flag, and this seems kind of the obvious, but yet sometimes it's not. It's like, just be kind and be respectful. In this day and age, it's obviously really, really heightened. My kids, I had one rule. It was be kind, no exceptions, which was really great when they were like 4 and somebody was biting each other. I'm like, is that kind? Please, no. So, I think it's, we as an Amazonian or as somebody within DDG, we want to hire someone that we want to hang out with and we think would do a really good job and that we would trust. And so, that's what you're there to just illustrate.
Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting too is that, I kind of went through, like, I've been working for a while, and I had really relevant stories from a while ago that at any other job interview I would have felt was too dated, but it's not, because you learn from every experience, you learn from every job. And so what I did find was my first phone interview, I thought there was no way they're calling me back, because I'd been at Microsoft for a while, and it's not as stringent. In the interviews I was in during the time that I was there, it wasn't quite as stringent, and I wasn't prepared. I was not prepared. I had just launched Microsoft Teams. I was exhausted. I had been sick, and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just do this thing and get it out of the way. And I really was shocked that they even called me back, because I couldn't even remember what the heck I had done, right? And so it's worth taking time when you're prepping for an interview to go back through your resume and try to really remember, like, what happened there, or what was good about that experience, or what was bad about that experience. I mean, like I said, I got fired. Like, I just flat out got fired. And that was the most humbling thing that ever happened to me, and the best thing that ever happened to me, because if it happens again, I know I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I also learned that my boss is actually my boss, and he has the power to do that. I was wrong. Because he does. He did. And but that experience allowed me to grow a lot more than the easy, cushy ones sometimes do. So failures are totally fine to talk about. It's more about, what did you learn in the process, and what would you do different next time?
Yeah. Well, does anybody have questions that they want to ask based on what we've talked about? And
oh, I have a question.
Go.
Michelle, I also work for Amazon. I work
Cool.
in the fulfillment center in Kent.
Yeah.
Just started working there a couple months ago anyways. So, but I'm obviously looking to transition into technical writing.
Yeah.
So I kind of know what you're talking about. They definitely have those leadership principles everywhere in the building. And I don't know, what can you say?
Advice. Yeah.
What do you got?
So if you were in the company, which is great, whenever you're in someplace, find people to do what you want to do and ask them if you can have 15 minutes of their time. If we were in person and not in COVID, I'd say go buy them a cup of coffee, but we aren't. So people like to talk about themselves. I just took 36 minutes of your life talking about myself. So people want to help, and they want to learn. So you can look me up, and I'll help you. What I would recommend is going to the job finder, looking for people that are hiring technical writing jobs. And then we can go figure out who those people are. And then you can just hit them up and say, hey, this is where I want my career to grow. I know you have a role. I might not be right for it, but would you be willing to talk to me? And even if you might not be quite qualified enough, or they're looking for something different, they've met you, you've made an impression, and they're going to remember you. And so they might have a colleague in a different team that has the perfect opportunity. So I would say, people inherently want to help. And if you just are super clear about, like, here's where I'm at, this is what I'm looking for, would you just give me some of your time? I think that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay. Are you on LinkedIn?
I am on LinkedIn. You guys are welcome to look me up. It's Michelle. My last name is Renn, R-E-N-N. And then we've got a new writer that just joined the team, and she had contracted on our team. She was helping with our HIG, which is really like the all the tenants and how you write about Alexa. So she wrote that website essentially, and then they brought her on to help our UX writers. So she'd be a great person to talk to, and I know she'd be happy to hop on a call. So yeah, when you can find people, and even going through LinkedIn and finding people that do what you want to do, reach out to them and say, can we hop on a Zoom call? I think that now more than people have some extra time. Nobody's commuting. We get tired of talking to our colleagues as much as we love them. So take advantage of it. And if they say no, whatever, go on to the next one.
Yeah.
And they might, and don't take it personally, because people might just be buried. And if you had asked, they might be in the middle of something crazy. So I would say I'd just start a little list of, like, and if it's somebody you really want to talk to, come back to them in 3 months and say, hey, I reached out earlier, but would you consider now if it would be a good time?
Yeah, that's great. And I think also, one of the things that I would love for us to do as former classmates is stay in touch and be able to leverage each other's networks. So hopefully we can continue to do that. Michelle, you mentioned you mentioned agency work. Do you know, are there some agencies that you guys are working with all the time, or is it just kind of a grab bag?
You know, it's kind of a grab bag, but when I say agency, I'm thinking like off the top of my head, I'm thinking of the Garrigan Lyman Group, which is an agency that's been around for a long time. I work there. Many people have worked there, but they do a lot of technical stuff. They do a lot of apps. They did a lot of T-Mobile work for a long time. And so even going into LinkedIn and looking up GLG, their acronym is GLG, and seeing kind of what kind of writers you might find that might have been there. Because there's going to be the Microsofts and the T-Mobiles and the Starbucks, and then there's going to be the work that they can't do, but it's super, super important to them. And that's when they would go to an agency, and you get really great experience. Sometimes people work for like when we were working on site, like people would be embedded at a certain company, but sponsored. There's also some good placement agencies. There's one called Tech Systems. I mean, there's a lot of them, but I would try to go through the web and try to find some people that do placement, because that's a really good way to find out, just learn about companies and to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I worked as a temp at Microsoft for 4 years, you know, part of the whole Microsoft permatemp lawsuit and everything. So,
oh boy.
Anybody else got something they want to add? Yeah, go, Jerome.
Yeah. Thanks again, Michelle, for speaking. One of the questions I had that I didn't think about when I was talking to our previous folks, did you take any classes outside of journalism in your transition? And if you didn't, would you have? Like, were there classes that you were interested in but just didn't get the opportunity to?
That's a good question, and I would say I should have taken some UX/PM classes. I should have, and I didn't. And it was it's one of those ebbs and flows in my career where I didn't get an opportunity to do it, and I really, 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 really wanted to. And then I got there and realized, oh wow, this is a little more technical than is my skill set. So I would say, you know, anything that's of interest, you never know what's going to come in handy. The SBC, I think, has some good classes too. And there's I've got some colleagues that teach over there. So I would, you know, if you go on LinkedIn too and find people that are working where you want to work, and they also are doing things in the community, volunteering or at a place like SBC, it might be worth just picking up a class and seeing how you can network. We actually hired one of my colleagues is an interaction designer, and he teaches there, and he met one of his students that he really was fond of, and we got her in as a UX/PM contractor. And I don't know if it's the right job for her, and I don't know if she'll stay, but at least she's getting a chance to see if Amazon's a good fit. So it's another good way to network, I would say. And if you're interested in it, that's the key. I mean, just bottom line, like if you get excited about something, that's the breadcrumb trail we should all be following. Because you want to wake up in the morning and go do something cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Anybody else I've got a couple other things I could throw out there. You know,
I had a little wondering.
Keith.
Yeah, so Michelle, you shared a lot of different experiences after television. Even you had some pretty diverse experiences working on different kinds of products with different kinds of interactions. And so I was just wondering if there are any kind of through lines that carried you through all that diverse work that you found to be valuable in those various roles.
Yeah, I think that, you know, my breadcrumb, I think it started out, I wanted to get into television because I wanted to help people. And so I wanted to do kind of community events, and then that was a little slow. And so then I got into producing, and then I realized, oh, I was just scaring the pants off people. So that's not helping people, because local news kind of went that way. And so I think that that's always, I've had to kind of suss it out, honestly. And what I finally realized was I need to be around creatives. Like, I'm not an artist, I'm not a designer, but if I'm not around people that are, I get real bored. And so there's something about their energy and the way they see life, the world, I really enjoy. So I think ultimately the through line was, what's the next opportunity where I can be around cool people that will teach me things? And some of them have been like really bad, like not bad, none of it's bad, but I mean, at Microsoft, like I spared you from my Microsoft journey, but I'll do it real quick. It was when it was Xbox, then Windows Phone, then Windows, then I went over to Skype, and then I worked on Skype in the classroom, which I thought would be super cool. And it was super cool, but I was coordinating programs. I was getting people to volunteer. We got our first, was right when Minecraft, we acquired Minecraft, and I got a call with Satya and Hour of Code and all these cool things, but I was sitting in an office by myself all day long, and I was going crazy. So then I realized, okay, if I'm not around people, like really around people and collaborating and doing things together, I'm going to lose it. So then I went over to Office, and I was at Office when I left Microsoft. So I think that it's important to know what your core values are, what gets you excited, and how you want to spend your time. And if you are clear on those and follow really the breadcrumb trail to those opportunities, it's going to work out. And then you'll be doing really great work because it's what you're passionate about.
Right.
And I don't always know, but I was able to kind of put it together.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, why am I happy right now? Right? Like, why is this cool? Oh, it's cool because this is the part where I feel like I can contribute, or this is the part where I feel like I'm making a difference. And to me, that's what's important. That's what I want to do for my teammates and for my organization.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right on. Let's see. Anybody got anything else occurred to them?
I'm around, guys, if in 2 weeks you have a question. So
yeah. Well, thank you.
Just
if I ask you a quick question while we're all together. Thank you so much for coordinating this. And I noticed you say you're recording this. Is this something, would the recordings be possible to be disseminated to the individuals who are present today?
I think so. I'll be honest, I've never tried to record one of these before. I don't know what the output looks like, or even where to find it, but I will. The idea is that we would be able to watch it again, or for other people in the class. I think for right now, I figured it would just be something for folks who had been in the class, and not broader than that. Did you have something else in mind?
No, I was thinking I would love to get a copy of this, because I can remember, of course, 100% of everything except for what I don't remember.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
which is maybe not 100%, totally. Jeremiah, I think what happens is it will compress the video, and then you'll be able to send it out with a link and probably the same code, and then people should download it. Yeah. I'm not sure how long it'll. Okay, now the dog is crying.
Yeah, right, exactly. Depend on.
I'll be right back.
Depending on my
like, I'm done with
level,
you.
I'm sure.
Exactly. I'll be right back.
Videos for longer. Yeah, all right.
Does it export it as like an AVI or MP4?
No idea.
Okay.
First time around the block.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I took pretty thorough notes, and I know Doug, Jeremiah and I talked about how for our previous session we did an article about it. We can definitely have something like that available for what we've done today.
Yeah.
Oh, Jeremiah, if you want to go for a resource, you might send an email to Sherry, because I believe she's aware of how to do some of that.
Oh, okay. Great. Thanks, Doug. Well, I mean, I
What
had
am I-
one more question, if you don't mind.
Okay. No,
Please.
not at all.
You know, one of the things at the conference that Jerome and I went to, one of the things a lot of the people talked about was how to position yourself as a writer within an organization to be effective, to make sure that you are a part of the whole sort of product life cycle. And a lot of them talked about, where do I sit within the organization being a very important thing to them. And I was curious, you know, you described this sort of three-part team of production, design, and engineering. Where does the UX faction or group sit within that organization?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So they sit firmly within the design organization.
Okay.
And then they are brought in a different, you know, we have to be about 75% baked, if you will, to really know what the interaction is and when we're going to need them.
Right.
And so what will happen is we'll map out the experience in a Confluence. So we use Jira and Confluence. So we'll actually take screenshots and put it into a grid, and then walk the writers through the experience, and then they'll go through and usually there's placeholder copy, whether it's the interaction designer just, you know, talks about what is actually happening. Then they will take that and tweak it. And so a lot of times it's about, well, we don't ever refer to a product as this, or in our tone of voice is this. And so their job is to make sure that it's clear, consistent, and concise. So what will typically happen is we'll have the experience pretty much done. They'll come through, write copy. If the product manager is okay with it, then we take it to legal and have legal go through it and make sure that some of those are easier than others, like the Echo Auto, right? Like, are you distracting someone? Like, how do you, it can get complex.
Yeah.
But our UX writer will be with us during those reviews, because we half the time are rewriting things on the fly. And that's mainly because she's so well versed. But that's really where it happens. So when we hand over final files for engineering to go implement, those strings should be finalized also.
Sure.
In an ideal state. So then they just take it and go and build.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting to learn how the sausage is made in different places.
Sometimes it's surprising it actually comes out, but it does. I mean,
you know what? And surprising how many different recipes there are, because
that's the hard part, because you would think, I mean, I certainly thought that there was one way to do it. There's no way to do it. Like, there are very light guardrails and everyone's just problem solving. And so I guess that's the beauty of building something like nobody's ever done before. I mean, like, it's pretty interesting that the gentleman that does all our sound design for the product, we just had Alexa's 5th birthday. And so this was back before COVID, and we had a little party. And he told the story of he moved his family up from San Francisco, had never seen the product. On his first day, they took him into a closet, essentially, showed him a Pringles can and said, ask for, I don't know, some song. And it took 5 minutes for it to go get the song and bring it back. And he was freaking out. It's like, I have just relocated my entire family for this thing that doesn't work, right? And so, and who knew? It worked out okay. But nobody, they're just building stuff. And so
wow.
That's exciting, but it's also like, oh, wow, there's no roadmap. There's no right way. You just kind of get what works for the team and then you go with it. So that's been an interesting learning for me.
Yeah, that sounds pretty wild.
It is.
Have to stay agile.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I told Jeremy before we started that one of my dad's favorite sayings to me when I was little, because we grew up skiing, was keep your knees bent. And so that's pretty much it. Like, you just got to be like, all right, okay, hang in there.
That's good. Awesome. Well, does anybody have anything? I kind of want to stick to schedule and stick to our 8 o'clock hard stop. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to ask before we go our separate ways? All right. Well, I would love to do this again. Hopefully it was fun for everybody. It's certainly informative. Thank you, Michelle, for walking us through all of that. It's super interesting. And if anybody has any thoughts or follow-up questions, sounds like Michelle's happy to take them. If you guys have any thoughts, feedback about how this went or how you think we could do it better, that would be awesome to know. And it's nice to see everybody. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And look, everyone, stay safe and hit me up on LinkedIn if I can help at all.
Right on.
Will do.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
Jeremiah.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks, Jeremiah.
Good night,
Have a good night,
everybody.
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Good night, Michelle.
Bye. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.